Oh, okay, much better. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are back with another episode of Paranormal. We've been
Did
away,
you
but we're back. And
did you know that I had an anniversary last month?
You did? What
I think
anniversary?
it with being with you.
Oh,
Yeah, 7 years.
wow!
I know.
It doesn't seem like it's been that long.
I know.
Huh? I guess so.
Yeah,
Interesting.
7 years.
I would have never thought that. Well, now let's see. In 7 years, we've talked about so much food, so much paranormal, more food, more paranormal. Oh. So, yeah, but tonight we've got a very special show for you tonight. We are going to be doing a look at, let's see, let's try this teaser to give you guys a chance at what it actually is.
After the embarrassing defeat at the Battle of Saratoga and the entrance of France and Spain into the war, the British were looking for new ways to defeat the Americans quickly. Over in England, Parliament was becoming increasingly frustrated at the lack of success and the costs that were starting to mount in order to fund the war. People in England were becoming increasingly frustrated also at the lack of success and also the heavy taxes that were levied on them in order to fund the war. The new strategy the British would come up with would be called the Southern Campaign, and this was the genius idea of General Sir Henry Clinton. Clinton would raise a new army and would sail from New York into the southern colonies, and he would establish a British foothold in Georgia and South Carolina, and then would send out small units into the back countries of North Carolina, South Carolina, and Georgia in order to recruit people that were loyal to the crown. The British assumed that most people in the southern colonies were loyalists, which meant that they were loyal to the British, and that once the British had established dominance in the southern colonies, they would flock to the British lines.
Okay, so that voice would be this man right here.
Yay!
Now, I know that's supposed to be a teaser. We got a better teaser. Yeah, we got a better teaser coming up. Yeah.
I'm already cringing.
Oh, no.
Well, actually, there's something cool in the teaser that I want to focus on later on, and we do have that as a clip as well, and we'll point that out too. But last time you were on, we were focusing on the actual courthouse itself.
Mm-hmm.
And the Guilford Courthouse, and we were talking a little bit about the war. We actually were looking at pictures and trying to make, oh, it's this and oh, it's that. So it's kind of fun to put it together and start to see it. And one of the things that was exciting for me, seeing that little teaser, was the actual reenactment. So you were there getting to shoot this reenactment, and people would probably, like me, would be like, ooh, that would be fun, or that's cool, but they don't quite realize the history that follows behind it, right?
Oh, yeah, and real quick, just to point out, I actually didn't shoot that reenactment. All the reenactment footage that's used in the documentary was actually donated and sent to me from various reenactment groups in America.
Okay.
I put out a feeler. I think I lost count at about 62 different groups and historical societies. And I said, hey, I'm doing this historical/paranormal documentary where I want to do a deep dive into the story behind the battle and the paranormal claims behind it. And I said, if you have footage, ideally without spectators or something, I'd like to use it, of course, give you all credit links to your sites and all that stuff. And I had about 5 or 6 different groups that got back to me and either let me use their footage or, shared their stories, their knowledge about the battle. Some of them had ancestors that fought there, so they told me some family stories. And it's just really cool. And it's one of my favorite parts about the paranormal field is being able to, one, meet new people, and then also, hear various stories, family stories about people that were actually there, the cool reenactments and stuff. A lot of the footage is actually an amalgamation of Camden reenactments, Guilford Courthouse, and one that's close to my house, the Battle of the Hook. The one actually with the big grand armies was actually filmed at the Battle of the Hook reenactment. But in terms of giving you a scale of what an 18th century battle would have looked like, I feel like that was the best one. But of course, my favorite was the one sent by the 6th North Carolina, where one of their guys had a GoPro on his chest throughout the battle. And I like that because it gives you the sense that you're actually there. And being able to put yourself in those shoes, I think, can help you understand, not just what they went through, but, if I were a spirit, how would I want people to communicate with me? How would I want to be approached? And I feel like that really helped me during filming.
Right. Annie asked a question earlier. I'll let you ask that question again because you were kind of curious on the wartime, right, Annie?
Mm-hmm. It's the Revolutionary, correct?
That's correct.
Revolutionary.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And with the different wars, obviously people look at the Civil War, they look at Revolutionary War. So I think I've heard a lot of people confuse the two.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess it wouldn't seem like it'd be that hard to kind of confuse them if you're looking at maybe say blue coats.
Yeah.
But when you start to see gray, hello, do you know which one this is?
Right.
So, and I know for a fact that you've sent in some amazing pictures as well with what you've taken from over there, which is pretty cool. And I got one that we used as a cover for this episode, obviously. Mm-hmm. And I wanted to see if you didn't mind discussing it to let everyone know what it is, and maybe they could learn more history about this.
Okay, so this is taken at the American First Line. And this, I'm trying to remember, because there were about 3 or 4 different ones from this angle. But this guy here was one of the North Carolina militia commanders. And the fighting along the first line was very, very hectic. You had the initial volley of about 1,100 muskets going off at once between the North Carolina militia and the Virginia militia. But after that, it basically became a free-for-all. You had some militia units that started breaking. They fired their one shot. They're like, okay, that's all I'm good for. I'm running away. And most of them wanted to wait to see how the British would react, because militia at that time, they weren't really used in pitched battles. They were mainly used to cover retreats, recruit, and then collect resources. So to have them, facing the regular army head on, that was really unheard of, and it was very, very risky. So after the British received this first volley, which was a very devastating volley, there was a lot of confusion in the British ranks, which is somewhat, strange and uncharacteristic of the British Army at that time. But you had some regiments that dug in and they started firing their own volleys. You had some that fixed bayonets and charged. And then you had some that kind of froze. They didn't really know what to do, mainly because their officers were killed. And typically if a regiment suffered, a bunch of NCO deaths, the regular soldiers, they weren't trained to kind of, I almost want to say think for themselves, but that's basically what it was. And so they would be waiting for someone else to be assigned to them before they would move. So at this spot right here, the North Carolina regiment started running away. And this guy and some of his friends, the other NCOs in the North Carolina militia, they started trying to rally their men, and they actually started running back with them, saying, hey, these guys are frozen. We've got them stopped in their tracks. Let's keep fighting. And this guy, he couldn't really get the guys to come back and fight. So he went back to the front lines and tried to build a stronger defense along this rail fence line. It ultimately didn't work, and it would prove, tragic for him. But he was just one of many people that did some very heroic things on that American First Line and really saved the Americans from disaster.
Something interesting. Obviously, we can see his time of death, but at the very bottom of this, if you look carefully, it was presented by McGallagher,
Galliard, and I believe Husk.
And Husk.
Yep.
July 4th, 1887. 4th of July. They actually did this for 4th of July.
Which is really cool. I'm actually not very familiar with, when they erected Tombstone, the ceremony behind it, but apparently they did have a nice little ceremony. I don't know why they chose 1887 as the date, but Guilford Courthouse battlefield was actually the first battlefield, Revolutionary War battlefield that was protected by the National Park Service. And it just recently, last week, celebrated its anniversary. And so there's a really proud tradition of preserving Guilford Courthouse. And it's even said that years after the battle, veterans would take their wives and their children and grandchildren to this battlefield, and they would walk the grounds and, tell them of the great battle they fought there.
Right. Well, this is in honor of Colonel Arthur Forbes of the
North Carolina troops.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, see, it kind of looks like it's all together.
Yeah.
He fell at his post in the discharge of duty on this memorable field of battle, March 15th, 1781. Wow.
Yep. He was one of many American officers that tragically fell early in the battle.
Right. Isn't that something?
Mm-hmm.
It just, these guys go through so much. They do. They put their lives on the line, and then here we are talking about them in history, like if there's something that they're not, nobody quite catches because, well, hey, it's there, it happened, right. But when we start to learn our history, we don't get a firsthand account like this, or we don't get a really close view until we get something like, what we're seeing here. Here's another one, Jake, that I really was interested in. It's a monument of some sort, but what could you tell us more about it?
So looking at the photo, I can see that it's a little crooked. That's because of my inverted vision.
I thought it was a leaning tower.
Surprisingly, no, but that would be kind of cool. So this is the Cavalry Monument where they thought the American Third Line was. And this is supposed to commemorate the charge that William Washington and the 3rd Continental Light Dragoons did on the Brigade of Guards at the Third Line, which many people say, saved the Third Line from completely collapsing, which at that point, the Third Line was close to collapsing, but, it was still a very heroic charge, very, very deadly charge. But a little bit back in the ravine, back behind it, there was something that came out in 1880, and I forget the historian's name, but he came out with, his version of Guilford Courthouse. And if you look slightly to the left in the wood line, that's where he said that the American Third Line was. And he wanted to place this monument exactly where, that charge took place, which we now know it actually took place, about 150, 200 yards to the right. It was actually a good bit of ways away. So even though it's an inaccurate position, they still left this up because it is something, in the memory of William Washington and his brave dragoons.
Why is it important to know their position to make a monument to that? Do you know?
So a lot of battlefields, they won't place monuments at the exact spot where things happen. Sometimes Gettysburg, that was one place where you'll see a monument to a regiment, even though it wasn't the exact spot. With the Revolutionary War, you see a lot of this simply because we don't have, like a set map, that everyone can agree on. You had British engineer maps, you had American engineer maps, and then they would send the reports to the generals. The generals would look over everything, try to remember the orders they gave, troop movements, and then they would funnel their report. And then you would have, individual people in their regiments that would write home to their families. So, fast forward to 2021, you have about 6 different accounts of where the soldiers were on the battlefield. And for historians and archaeologists, it's very important to know where things are because, one, they can excavate and look for artifacts. And then also, there is something a little cool about knowing exactly where the troops were on the battle. It almost makes you feel like you're more connected because, there's one less mystery to solve. And, the Revolutionary War, it doesn't seem like it was, a relatively new battle. But when you look in history, it is somewhat of a new event. So the fact that there are so many what ifs or mysteries when it comes to these simple battles, it can kind of disconnect a lot of people. So any chance that they get to reconnect people with what happened and where everything happened exactly, they always jump on it.
Right. I noticed in one of the pictures, it's just forest.
Mm-hmm.
But I recognize this forest in a later shot because I believe you're standing in that forest at a certain particular point.
Yep. Now, a lot of the forest there looks the same. But if I remember correctly, this is the second line action.
Okay.
What we ended up doing, if you look slightly to the left, this is where I think it is, there is a trail. And close to that trail, they have markers like, hey, this is where the American second line was, in this area, this happened. But close to here, when we walked into the woods off the beaten path, is actually where the second line was. And the way I was able to figure that out was I took the Guilford Courthouse map that they give you at the visitor center. I was able to line up the walking trails. And then I have a map saved on my phone of this book called Log Obstinate and Bloody, which is the definitive book on Guilford Courthouse, in my opinion. I'm up to my 5th reading on it. And I was able to somewhat place them on top of each other. And for their troop movements and locations, they use primary resources and then early secondhand resources. So I was able to somewhat layer the maps on top of each other to get a really good guesstimate as to where exactly they were on the field. And to the best of my judgment, this spot here, what you're seeing, is where the second line fighting took place.
Wow. Okay. That's pretty cool. Yeah, we look at it and I see so much, but at the same time, it's kind of one of those places where you just kind of want to take a walk.
Yeah, it's very peaceful. And it's actually kind of cool. They've done a really good job down at Guilford Courthouse with the battlefield. I can't tell you how many people were walking those trails. They've got walking trails. They've got the historic road trail. They've got, the road trail. And it's really cool because, there were people everywhere. It made filming very difficult because the battlefield was packed with people, not just people, there for the history, but also there to, just get some exercise. And I really like that.
And you can see here, I zoomed in a little bit so everyone could kind of see that. I could probably make that a little bit bigger. Let's see. Let's try. Okay, there you go. So see, they've got their walking path right there, and it's pretty well separated. You can see they kind of built like a little mini fence to stop people from crossing over and so forth. So it looks like they're doing everything they can to stop people from trampling into areas that they probably want to preserve.
Right. Which is exactly why I went into the woods, exactly where they didn't want me to go.
Yeah. Busted, we have proof.
Yeah, there it is.
Yeah. So let's see. We have the actual, let's see, we want to stop that. There we go. We got the actual teaser that we've been talking about. Which
over the years, Guilford Courthouse battlefield has gotten the there we go. There we go.
Yeah. Which you might see somebody in that wooded area. So let us take it all the way.
Over the years, Guilford Courthouse battlefield has gotten a reputation for being one of the most haunted Revolutionary War battlefields in America. Welcome to Guilford Courthouse National Battlefield. This battle was the turning point in the British Southern Campaign and would ultimately lead to the British surrender at the Battle of Yorktown a few months later in 1781. So about 200 yards down this road, which is the old Salisbury Road, is where the American first line was, and the British used the old Salisbury Road to form their battle lines and march against the Americans. Can anyone say hello? That was a voice. Greene now felt confident in being able to attack the British, and Cornwallis felt confident in attacking the Americans too, even after receiving word that they had been reinforced and resupplied, and that Greene was marching into North Carolina to fight Cornwallis in open combat. How am I just going into the woods like a freaking orc or something? I've got an idea.
All right. So,
woo!
Yeah.
I know that guy. I know him.
He looks a little bit like you, you know?
Yeah, he kind of does. I've heard people say that.
You got yourself a doppelganger.
So, I'm apparently frozen.
Apparently.
Yeah. So we're going to just bounce it over to this for the moment. I think. I don't know. Annie, you want to take over for a sec?
Okay.
I told you there were spirits attached to this. I told you.
We got gremlins. Gremlins. I wanted to find out what was the reason that you had to actually do this particular battlefield.
So the reason I chose this battlefield is because it's my favorite battlefield I've ever been to, even over Newmarket, Antietam, and several other locations. I probably put Gettysburg number one, but I'm too young to remember Gettysburg when I went. But there's just something about being at that battlefield that, you know, everyone has their place that they feel completely at peace. Like, no matter what's going on.
Gettysburg is mine, definitely.
Yeah, just everything feels right. And you know, the Revolutionary War is my favorite time period, or my favorite war to study. And, you know, I've spent the last 4 or 5 years really, you know, doing some heavy research into, you know, the factors that went into the war itself, and then the aftermath. And only in the last 2 years have I really started to look at the people involved in certain battles under a microscope. And I really became fascinated with the Southern Campaign and everything that went along with it. And, you know, I started doing research on characters like Banastre Tarleton, Daniel Morgan, Nathaniel Greene, Light Horse Harry Lee, Francis Marion. And it's cool because Guilford Courthouse, one, I also had an ancestor. I actually had 2 ancestors we've been able to track that fought at Guilford Courthouse. And then it's also where all of these favorite figures, they all come at this one location, aside from Francis Marion. He wasn't here, or Daniel Morgan. But this is, you know, this is the battle that decides the Southern Campaign, the fate of the American Revolutionary War. And this is where all these characters that I've spent years reading about, buying their biographies, you know, doing every little thing I can to learn more about them. This is where they all come together in one climactic battle. And then I started reading paranormal accounts. You know, I've figured out that Guilford Courthouse is one of the most haunted battlefields, not just of the Revolutionary War, but on the East Coast. And actually at my job,
really?
I have the opportunity. Yeah, actually at my job, I'm very lucky. I get to talk to people that do a lot of traveling. And a few weeks ago, I ran into someone who was from Greensboro, where Guilford is. And they were telling me that it used to be, you know, a dare for high school students to see how close you could get to the battlefield at night, because supposedly spirits would chase you out, and that it had like he described it as a horror movie feel to it. And he said that a lot of his guys, he said a lot of his friends, even, you know, the big tough jocks at the school, they wouldn't go because, you know, it just disturbed them too much. And so, you know, that just enticed me more to go to Guilford.
Well, I was just reading recently, my family, my father's side of the family's been there since the mid 1600s down in Virginia,
Mm-hmm.
1652 or something. And I found out that they actually fought in the Revolutionary War, but I'm not sure where. I kind of like skimmed over it. I got a big stack of papers to go through. So that would be kind of interesting to find out if they fought there as well.
Yeah, that would be really cool. The National Park Service for Guilford Courthouse, they have a database where they have a lot of names of people that they've been able to verify fought at Guilford Courthouse. So what's really interesting, when they were doing the pension reports, years and years later, after they set that up, they had a lot of people that falsely claimed that they were at Guilford Courthouse. And of course, to apply for the pension, you had to provide an account. And so you had a lot of people that would literally make stuff up about the battle. And over the years, it muddied the waters of history. And it's only been, the last 100 or so years that we've been able to actually get our hands on actual documents, actual correspondence from people that we know were there. And so there's kind of this element of mystery to it, because you have the story itself, the accepted version of the battle, and then you have a few red herrings, by some of these pension reports. And it's the National Park Service, I can't commend them enough for the job they've done, but they've been able to kind of weed out some of the red herrings. So, but some of those legends still persist. And part of the fun for me, this documentary is, kind of myth busting just a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm definitely going to start looking again. I mean, there's so many papers that, and I kind of knew that there was supposed to be somebody that fought in that war, but then I read it and it's like, wow, I could become join the Daughters of the Revolution. And of course, Gettysburg or the Civil War, both sides fought, and, both sides of my family fought. Opposite ends, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and it's like, wow, this is really cool. But
it's really interesting when you start getting down into it. And one of your commenters, Sarah Youssef, I hope I said your name right, asked a really interesting question. Have you had any dreams about the time period? I have had dreams before of the American Revolutionary War. There's just something about that time period that I feel a very strong connection to. When I was at military school, I had some history teachers there that were very knowledgeable about the Revolutionary War. And then also while I was at military school, I fell in love with tactics. And, I just loved studying 18th century tactics. There was just something about it that I just found really fascinating. And all of that stuff has really helped me on projects like this.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's cool. You think this... I don't know. I don't know how you believe that maybe you were reincarnated, or
it's possible. Something. I mean, I believe in reincarnation, but before I would ever claim something like that, like with anything, you have to have evidence for it. And I believe reincarnation is one of those things that it's tough to impossible to get good, credible evidence of it. I guess maybe if you were in, like a trance-like state under hypnosis. Goodness, what's it? Past life recollections, there's a type of hypnosis you can do for that, but it is something I've thought about before.
Yeah, I was just curious because when you said you feel comfortable in that time period, and I feel the same way. And as I said, and the things that I did, my mom said when I was a little girl, it's like, how would you know? So,
right.
So I was actually going to have it done one time, but I chickened out.
That's me. Sorry.
And he's back. Hi.
Welcome back.
You're not back?
Well, it echoes if I do it.
It gives it like an ethereal feel to it.
Can you yodel? Try yodeling. Go ahead. Oh, chicken. Oops, there he goes again.
Yeah, nice of him to pop in.
Yes. So I've actually never heard of that particular park, but I'm definitely going to look into that. because I want to get back down to Virginia. And I don't know where exactly in Virginia that is.
No, this is actually in North Carolina. Guilford Courthouse is in Greensboro.
North Carolina?
Mm-hmm.
Well, guess where I am going? I'm going to go visit my daughter. She lives in Charlotte. And we are going to take a road trip.
It's well worth it. There is a lot of walking involved. The people that I had helping me out, I told them, I was like, there's a bit of walking involved. They're like, oh, we're fine, don't have to worry about that. And then we got there, and I was like, believe me, there's a lot of walking. Like between the American first line and second line, there was like 400 yards of a gap. And then between the second line and third line, it was like 250 yards. So, that's a lot of walking.
Yeah. I kind of think my cousin moved back there. She was in Greensboro. I'll have to ask her and see if she actually moved back there.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
We got a whole mess of family in North Carolina.
It's a good state. I always wanted to move there.
It's beautiful. My son lives in, I don't know, I got his thing over there. Raleigh. Yeah, around there somewheres. And then my daughter's in Charlotte. My aunt's in New Bern. And I don't know where Robin is. As I said, I think she moved back there. So.
All right, let's see if this works.
Oh, you sound normal.
Yeah, but I also see the nice little lag of doing everything. So it's okay. You guys are doing a great job together.
Right.
Well, thank you.
Annie, I think
sounds good. I see that. The original Krispy Kreme. Ooh.
I'd probably never leave there if I went.
No, I don't think I would either.
I love Krispy Kreme.
Have you ever received information or leads through James? I don't know if you answered that or because I did.
I have before, or I'll have certain dreams that will, kind of kickstart ideas. I'm one of those people where I can remember most of my dreams, if not all of my dreams. And usually, like if I'm working on a project like this, something that's taken up a lot of my mind, I usually do dream about, either the thing itself or something related to it that's almost serves as, like a lesson. It's like watching an after school special, it doesn't really tie into what you're doing, but you somehow learn a lesson about it. But a lot of times I will sit and reflect. I'll be like, that was kind of a weird dream. And then, somehow 1 + 1 will equal 2. And be like, hey, what if I did this? What if I did that? And it'll literally start the snowball effect of, just inspiration for how to tackle not just a documentary, but also, historical lead or a paranormal investigation.
Right. Yeah, there's a lot of things that I guess inspires us.
Mm-hmm.
Anywhere from, like say, for example, the image that we had up earlier here, which is the entrance to the park, and you were actually standing there in there while you were talking in the documentary, in the trailer. That's what I'm trying to. The word just everything just snowballed today and my brain just stopped. But yeah, as you're explaining what's going on, so you can actually see here, this is an image of what was going on and the battlegrounds. And so it makes you kind of want to, you drive by something like that and you want to go and check it out. You're like, hey, what's going on here? So
I didn't want to leave when I was there. even though the day of shooting was a complete disaster, I still didn't want to leave. I had a great time.
Yeah, it's the one park I would literally love to go to is Gettysburg.
Well, you can stay here. We can ride you up.
Yeah. That's possibility. I actually ran across something else.
Uh-oh.
I think this is it. So let's see. Yeah, we're having fun issues tonight. So everybody's probably looking and saying EW looks different. He doesn't.
No, you look normal to me.
No, because I'm looking down at the camera.
I was gonna say, I thought it was new glasses.
Oh no, I'm actually
You're not wearing your glasses.
I know.
I'm not wearing my glasses. Exactly. She got it real quick.
Yeah, if I didn't have mine on, I wouldn't be able to see anything.
Yeah, well, some of the stuff is small, so that's makes me say, I wish I had my screen. Yeah. Anyway, all right. We did this one. So, here we go. Oh, no, it's 16 minutes. Never mind, that's not it.
I was about to say, that's probably not it.
This is it. So, in the...
say hello?
We'll stop that. So, in this one, you were... this is a clip that was actually in the trailer. And when you were discussing it, this is something that came up. So I want to go over it again so everyone can hear it real quick.
Can anyone say hello? That was a voice.
So the last one, you caught, I guess you kind of more responded to the male voice than you did the female voice.
When I heard the male voice, typically with the spirit box, I guess, I'm a little slow when it comes to picking out the radio chatter. It usually takes me a few seconds to kind of process, what I've heard. And so when I heard the hi, first I was processing, was that a voice or was it radio? Because, when you're in the middle of Greensboro in somewhat of an open area, you get a lot of radio signals. And we had a lot of false positives. So I was like, that sounded like a female voice. And I was trying to figure out, I was like, that sounded like a young female voice. And I was saying, why would there be a young female voice on a battlefield? And then my mind started going, what if she was a nurse? Because close to this spot, this is at the American first line. Right. More accurately, this is where the British actually were standing and where they would have been dropping. The Americans actually would have been about 50 yards back behind me. So where I was standing, people were dying, to put it bluntly. And the Hoskins farm is very close to where I was. And it's interesting to note the Hoskins farm was used as the British hospital. And it's noted that they had troops all over where the first line was. And the Guilford Courthouse area was actually used for American wounded and prisoners. So, my mind was saying, what if that's a nurse who, at one point would have been tending to someone wounded? Because they left the people on the field for up to 4 days after the battle, didn't move them. Yeah, a lot of people, they died. So when that second voice, spoke out of nowhere, the reason it caught my eye was before I could piece out what it was saying, I heard an English accent. That's why it stood out to me. I need to go clean it up because, there is a difference between what you hear in real time with your own ears versus what the microphone on your camera picks up.
Say hello?
No, go ahead. I paused it.
Okay, you're good. It's a lot clearer in person than it is on the recording, but I couldn't tell what the male voice was saying. All I knew was it was a male voice, and it sounded like it had an English accent, almost like not really a middle-aged man, but somewhere maybe in his 30s or 40s. And so, my mind went to this is the spot where British officers who would have been barking orders, this is where they fell. So, I was thinking, could this be a British officer or soldier who died in this area? And that's why that stuck out to me.
All right. Well, let's take another listen here and see what we get out of it.
Mm-hmm.
That was a voice.
We'll go back to that.
That was a voice. That was a voice.
It is kind of hard to make out if it's a... I guess what we would have to do is literally have like an actual audio clip to sit there and get into it like you're saying. But let me ask you, is this a Radio Shack hack box or how's this?
This is a regular PSB7 spirit box.
Okay.
Yeah, it's one of the base models. I got it a few years back. The file that you heard in that video was, straight from the camera. I do plan on taking it through Audacity, doing all my cleaning stuff to it. This was me just putting it in a teaser to show people, hey, something really cool happened. Can't wait to clean it up and see what it really is.
Yeah. Oh, I'd love to know what you get after you run it through all that.
Oh, same here. I'm really excited to do that.
Excuse me.
I mean, I know Annie loves EVPs.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
All right.
That is
so now
fun.
now the question is, do we make Jake really squirm?
Oh, no.
No. Let me ask you one other thing. While you were down there, did you take photographs and get any, anything on camera or anything like that?
I didn't get any anomalies on the camera. I only took about, I think it was like 38 photos the entire time I was there. And that was simply because the vehicle we were supposed to take had capabilities to but to charge my camera battery. But that vehicle conked out mysteriously, even though it was taken to a mechanic a few days before and it was perfectly fine. For some reason it messed up the day we were going.
Oh, of course.
Yeah. So my priority was, footage over photography because, I had my instant camera there, so I could take photos with that. And then I had my iPhone. So, I figured, I can use my iPhone to take photos and then I can use the D5600 to do the video. But on a full charge, it only has about 3.5 hours. So, we ate that up really quickly.
Right. So Evie asked a good question. As history goes on, do you think that the paranormal aspects of the Revolutionary War will be buried under more modern energetic imprints?
That's a very good question. I honestly can't give 100%, definitive answer on that simply because I don't know how the layers of energies work. I would imagine the Revolutionary War impact would be stronger simply because it was more traumatic. It might leave a bigger imprint, because there were thousands of people going through a traumatic experience under some very harsh conditions. And I'm wondering if almost like a big, think tank, all those energies kind of meshed into one, super energy that just spread out over this battlefield. And that might be why the Revolutionary War energy might be more prevalent than more modern energy because there's less connection to it.
Right. That makes sense. It makes good sense too, because you think about it, all the energies, we have different sources of energies, we have different things that can create residual effects and so forth. So you would have to go over the area and kind of know a lot of that to know whether this is the imprint that we're seeing or this is what it is. So
right.
that makes good sense.
Yeah, all right. Like water or limestone or what is around that area that could soak up that kind of energy.
Yes.
Yeah.
Very true. Okay, let's put this up there and give you guys this.
So right now where I'm standing is roughly where the American second line would have been stationed. Now, the original plan was for the second line to be reinforced by remnants of the Virginia and North Carolina militia from the first line. However, this didn't end up happening, and the second line, mainly made up of Virginia militia, had to actually open up their ranks to let the North Carolinians that were fleeing back to the third line through, causing a big gap. So the Americans reformed their lines, and they were waiting for the entire British army to meet them head on, but they never did. In the first line, what ended up happening was a series of fragmented attacks, and this caused the British to meet the Americans at various points in time during the battle. So by the time the fighting was done on the American first line and the British started making their way to the second line, they actually did not reform their lines. Now, this was very strange because typically the British would. Charles Cornwallis, who was the commander of British forces, was one of the most brilliant tacticians the British had in their entire army. So why he didn't redress his ranks and continue the attack in order, we may never know. But ultimately what ended up happening is you would have 1 or 2 British regiments that would meet the American second line 1 or 2 at a time. Now, this seems good on paper, but what you would have happen is you would have a British regiment would meet the middle of the Virginia militia, and the regiments on the flanks would wheel around to outflank the British regiments and pour fire on them from various angles. This is good because it does inflict severe casualties. However, when the British would bring reinforcements or the rest of the British army would meet the second line, the Americans would be outflanked. Now, combine this with a series of confusing orders, and this caused the American second line to crumble without doing as much damage as Greene had hoped.
So there you go. It's I know Jake's like, why did you put that in there?
I am one of those people that I can be happy with the take, but I do not like watching it. I just do not.
There's a couple of things.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
You would make a wonderful history teacher.
Yes.
Well, thank you.
I am serious. I would take your class.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. I do realize I talked with, my hands a lot. I do love that.
I think we all do.
If you learn anything when they tell you about teaching, they got this thing called TPR. Yeah. And so, you have hands make movements like listen or, tell them to respond, so you're giving them that. And so when you're talking like this, the hand movements and everything, it kind of it makes the dramatization so much better, makes it so much more crisper in a sense, because you could just have your hands down to the side and just talk like this, and eventually
yeah, was me in history class.
Right? Well, see, that's why I find it hard to believe that's what it's like for you in history class, because something tells me you love history.
Well, here's the deal. In history class, I was really bad for correcting the teachers. I was the student that teachers would hate. So I would be, like I remember getting into arguments with my history teacher in 10th grade because we would be talking about the Civil War, the Revolutionary War, and he would say something wrong. And I'd be like, well, actually, this happened. And, I would just tune out, whether it be Revolutionary War, Civil War, World War II, that's why I had problems in history class. I always did very well on the test. Right. But when it came to actually paying attention in class, and no, I did not.
Yeah, hey, I don't feel bad. I'm like that. I just finished my master's. I'm starting on my PhD, and I'll tell you what, some of those instructors, they're good. They're really good, but I think the way they kind of portray stuff, it's harder for you to interact or right. Yeah, so when you get into one that you really love, you don't stop, you just give me more. So you find the difference over time, and you kind of stick with it and say, I'm gonna do that.
Yeah,
I don't know. I sometimes think that if I was a teacher, like say maybe a history teacher, it might be somewhere down the line of Bueller. But so what we've given everyone today is some very good stuff that's coming up next week, if I'm right.
Yep, that's the plan. This March 15th is the 240th anniversary of the battle. So the plan is for it to be out that weekend.
All right. So here's what you guys get to check out. If you go to look up Fife Paranormal, which it's kind of scrolling across the bottom, on YouTube, you'll get to see the full documentary being released there. So what we've given you is some teasers. We've given you some pictures and an EVP that we're going to find out how it cleans up come time of the release.
I can't wait for that.
I know,
I
right?
am excited. I am so excited for you.
Oh, thank you.
This is going to be pretty cool. Now, if anyone does like history, and want to find out more, definitely go to Fife's YouTube page. I want to say Facebook so bad. I'm sorry. Go to their YouTube page, and you will actually catch some other documentaries that are in there, and they're really interesting. They've got some, like I was checking out one, and I would have never thought that railroad was lifted until you mentioned it. For the massacre one. Yeah, I would have never guessed that railroad was lifted.
I wouldn't have either. That's just one of those things. It seems like a minute detail for them to do, but it is really cool. And thank you, Sarah. I really appreciate that. I've worked on film projects many times before. This is my second paranormal documentary, but there's something a bit more special to this. And I guess it's because it's a topic that I love, that I know a lot about. And also, I've been visiting that battlefield since I was 10 years old, and it's my absolute favorite, place, Civil War, Revolutionary War battlefield. It tops them all. So to finally be able to tell their stories and then potentially communicate with these people that I read about, I mean, it literally is the perfect project.
Right. Hey, no, I don't blame you one bit. I look at it and I'm stoked. I want to... I can't wait. Like Annie says, I want to watch it. I want to get all into it and learn what I can out of it. But, I will be honest, okay? What I've seen so far, other than the EVP, I'm curious where the paranormal comes in.
Me too.
It comes in. It comes in. Right now, I've got it set up about 60% history, 40% paranormal. But that 40% paranormal, it's a capital 40%.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
When I was there last Wednesday filming, we were at the American Third Line, and I was looking at some reports because there was this bloody melee that took place, and there was an account of soldiers being beheaded and their heads rolling down this ravine, and that these two sides clashed into each other. And there was a project in the 1870s, 1880s, where they filled in a good bit of that ravine. And it's one of the missions, where did that take place? And we went off the beaten path on the battlefield. And I started noticing some familiar landmarks up on the ridges. And, because they only filled in the ravine, not the ridges. And they didn't meet, the ridge. So I was sitting there, I was like, wait a minute. I looked at the geography of the area. I was like, we're on top of a ridge. There's a slight, ravine in front of it. Then there's another ridge. And I pulled out the battle map of where we were. I was like, holy crap. I was like, I think this is it. I was like, I think this is where that bloody melee took place. And so I can't wait to go back there and film another Spirit Box session. I'll be honest, I was like a kid on Christmas morning when I found that spot.
Right. So, Annie, I heard you say that you thought that was kind of gross.
Oh, gosh. Yeah, well, that beheading, leaving bodies out for pigs, gross.
Well, let's see. Let's remember that even the Civil War was one of the bloodiest wars there was. And, in fact, in some of the descriptions of the Civil War, they actually used the words, the fields were painted with blood.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, where Devil's Den is. And then there's a creek. And then it goes over the creek, and then it goes up to Big Round Top, Little Round Top. That they said that was just nothing but blood.
Yeah.
And I never knew that, but that's one thing when we had gone to that battlefield, and remember I told you I finally found the date for that EW. So that was June 1st, 1996. I didn't know this at the time, but it was like, I have to go here. I need to cross this creek for some reason, and it was just really, really pushing me to cross this creek. But now, of course, they kind of like torn up the battlefield and they've torn down trees and stuff like that. They said it was going to make it more back to when the time of the battle was, which is a lot of crap, because I've actually seen photographs of during the battle and the trees were there. So I cried when I came into that battlefield that time and just saw all the trees going.
Well, okay, let's see. This is an image, actual picture, apparently, from one of the battle, or can't tell you exactly when. I apologize. I want to say this could be by the Hats, the Civil War.
Yeah,
that's Civil War.
Yeah,
definitely.
But I mean, here's an image of these guys literally there, and I mean, I get a deadpan face off of them where they're probably just tired of fighting.
They look tired.
Yeah.
This guy second from the left, he looks like, oh crap.
Yeah.
Second one, the two on the right, oh god, no more.
Yeah. But you get an idea of the actual feeling of war in here, and reenactments are one thing,
right?
Or they talk about a picture is worth 1,000 words, and of course we're looking at an actual photo from said wars. Think about how they were, and then we think about the EVPs that we could potentially get, or different particular events that could happen, surrounding such things. It would make you want to know more about the history, because you're getting something, and if you can't say what it is or how it is, then what do you do?
Right. I think if you have a good historical context of where you are, what took place there, and who was there, it kind of propels the any paranormal evidence you get. It makes it more impactful, in my opinion. And that's why for projects like this, I put a strong emphasis on the history, so that when something paranormal does happen, there's context, there's a build up to it. There's great importance put upon each and every piece of evidence.
Yeah. Definitely. Well, before we thank Jake for all that, let me remind everyone that we will be back next week. God willing, nothing goes wrong, like an ice storm in Texas.
Knock on wood.
Yeah, better knock on wood.
No more ice storms. If you don't like your cold weather, don't send it down here.
I told you we're next Friday, 74 degrees.
Yep. So, but next week we are going to be discussing quite a bit of things sent in, from images to actual video of possibly seeing Bigfoot.
Ooh.
Yeah. And what's really interesting, I've seen the video. It's very clear. Now, you think about it, greatest opening line of a movie is the first Hellboy with Ron Perlman, and the one guy says, "You ever notice that you never see a good picture of Bigfoot, and it's always blurry?" So yeah. Okay, so here we go. We got a video for the first time that seems very clear, and I'm gonna see what your guys' response is on that. So, Jake, again, thank you for joining us. This is amazing.
Thank you.
Thank you all so much for having me on. I know the whole scheduling thing has been interesting, to say the least, but I'm glad to be back on this show to talk with you all.
Anywhere
and you've got to come back again.
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah, well, definitely. Yep. And so, folks, if you want to check out this wonderful documentary, make sure you go to Fife Paranormal on YouTube, and you will find FIFE Paranormal, and you will find the documentary. Do we kind of know a time that it's going to release?
The plan is probably around 4 p.m., 3 or 4.
Eastern.
March
That's
15th.
Right?
Right?
It'll be Eastern. Yeah, March the 12th. It'll be about a week
March
from today.
12th. Okay.
A week from today. Yes.
Yep. No pressure on me whatsoever.
None whatsoever. We just got him to say it put it in concrete. No. Oh.
Yep. Not quite.
Yeah, we got you on tape.
Yep. But yeah, so for sure, and I can't wait because we might even comment about it on the show that night. So, well, we got to. I mean, come on, we've had you on, we've talked about it. I'm stoked. I can't wait.
Yep, and I'll be sure to send over your bribe money for the good review.
Yes,
Oh.
great.
Yes.
All right, ladies and gentlemen. Well, that is our time. We thank you for watching. Make sure you like, subscribe, and follow us here and on Facebook. And we'll see you guys with more paranormal next week. Good night.
Good night.
Y'all have a